For years, I've heard about Kessel Run, an amazing effort that was enabling the US Air Force to build software in a manner very different than how they've typically done it for the last 30 years. They were deploying multiple times per day to support all the people who depended on them. Last year, thanks to Twitter and some friends at Pivotal, I managed to meet two of the founders of this group and I was blown away by what I learned. I am so honored and delighted that Adam Furtado, who is Chief of Platform for Kessel Run, will be sharing their origin story and all the amazing things they've helped enable since then. I had a chance to visit them along with some friends in this community earlier this year, which incidentally was the last trip I made before the COVID travel lockdowns. Adam will be co-presenting with the amazing Lauren Knausenberger, who was recently elevated to become Deputy CIO for the U.S. Air Force, a sign of all the amazing contributions she has made to date, helping change what she describes as one of the world's largest bureaucracies. I finally got to meet her in person at an amazing event she helped organize called Spark Tank, designed to enable airmen to solve other airmen's problems across the entire U.S. Air Force. It is not an understatement to say that meeting the teams who were pitching a judging panel that included some of the top levels of leadership within the Air Force was one of the highlights of my career. It is just another example of how the work that this community is doing matters to people who matter. Here is Adam and Lauren.
All right, I just want to start by thanking Gene for inviting us to speak today. It's humbling and exciting to be here. My name is Adam Furtado, and I'm the Chief of Platform at Kessel Run, a U.S. Air Force digital transformation effort helping normalize DevOps within the world's largest bureaucracy.
Good afternoon. I'm Lauren Knausenberger, the newly appointed Deputy CIO of the Air Force, and really just joined the Air Force 3 years ago because I became very passionate about this problem space that Adam is now working in at Kessel Run, and just really wanted to speed adoption of commercial technologies and bust some of the bureaucracy that these warfighters find them in every day. And really excited to chat today with my friend Adam Furtado and to be invited by another friend, Gene Kim, who has made such a great impact on our airmen as well. So Adam, over to you for where our story begins.
Yeah, we're going to talk a lot about Gene's influence on some of the work that we've done. But first, I want to talk about outcomes. So on October 3rd, 2015, the U.S. military struck a Doctors Without Borders hospital in Afghanistan, believing it to be an enemy stronghold. Afghan commandos were under fire, and we had to respond fast to support our partners. Unclassified analysis later showed a number of failures that contributed here. There was no time to fully brief the crew. Their aircraft didn't have the latest data to ID the hospital. Basically, our failed IT ecosystem caused an AC-130 gunship to attack the wrong building. Now, it wasn't the crew members' fault. We failed them with ancient software and stovepipe systems. And unfortunately for us, ancient software and stovepipe systems are ubiquitous in the military right now. They exist everywhere, from enterprise business IT, weapon systems. And what happened here was not some kind of black swan event. It was predictable. And it's going to happen again. And while what happened here was tragic, it doesn't even begin to compare to the what ifs of major theater war with a peer adversary with the same type of effects. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking, did I click on the wrong URL? Am I in the wrong room? You didn't, you're not. I'm just talking about business outcomes. And this conference is about the relationship between technology and how it enables business outcomes. And these are the business outcomes of the US Air Force. How do we amass air power to the level needed to achieve air superiority, leading to our objective of protecting America's place in the world and defending democracy? We have all these conversations about business outcomes, and we can't forget our reality, that failure to us isn't a loss of revenue or a loss of subscribers. Failure to us is a loss of lives. So Lauren and I are going to talk a lot about how the US Air Force is enabling better outcomes. Kessel Run as an entity wasn't started to do DevOps. Kessel Run started because it had really hard business problems to solve. And we recognized that the traditional way of doing defense IT wasn't working. We wanted to test that using modern software practices, processes, principles would enable better outcomes. So a small coalition of presumed rebels formed, and with a complete focus on mission, a collective disregard for the status quo, and a willingness to just work harder than everybody else, the Kessel Run movement began. Now, Kessel Run, named after Han Solo's famed smuggling route, was named that because we knew we'd have to smuggle this way of working into the DoD, the world's largest bureaucracy. It wouldn't be enough to share a couple of case studies and make some folks read the Phoenix Project. You have to understand at the time, the DoD was a virtual case study itself and what not to do from a software perspective. I spent 8 years active duty, and I can vividly remember going into work on my phone, scrolling Twitter, checking my bank balance as I walked in. Then you had to put your phone and electronics in this little cubby on the way next to the door. As you walked into the office, you were suddenly transported into 1974. All of a sudden, everything was analog. It was like walking into a time machine where it was hard to send an email and collaboration was nearly impossible. And a decade later, it still roughly feels the same. But the worst part is the Stockholm Syndrome. This doesn't even feel abnormal to anyone anymore. The men and women we're relying on to protect democracy, unable to collaborate on a Google Doc or have access to a real chat tool, basic communication capabilities that we all take for granted in our regular lives. You shouldn't have to go back in time to go to work. And it wasn't just business tools the DoD was struggling with. According to US Digital Service, across all of federal government, 94% of federal IT projects were behind schedule or over budget, and 40% of them never delivered a single thing. Eric Schmidt once testified to Congress that the DoD violates every rule of modern product development. Meanwhile, elsewhere in reality, the software is eating the world movement was happening all around us. Target, Adidas, Walmart turning into software companies right under our nose. But the small coalition was paying attention. They wanted to turn the Air Force into a software company that can win wars. To begin, they turned their attention to the key business outcome that was right in front of them, and it was modernizing the Air Force's Air Operations Center. The Air Force plans their wars from places called Air Operations Centers, or AOCs. There are a couple dozen physical locations around the world where the Air Force strategizes, plans, executes the air campaign of wars. And due to our archaic IT infrastructure and our historic inability to take advantage of modern technology, we have to do all this work with specific humans in specific buildings